Welcome to the latest installment of the Run to Daylight show. I am your host, Todd Burrows, and I am joined today by a guy that I think is as good as anyone in the industry at rookies. So we're going to go team by team through some early news, and I'll ask Shane a bunch of questions. I would ask you a bunch of questions, and I would expect an answer immediately. I haven't done that in a while. Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Look, Todd, you're too good at that. It's I think you got to keep that rolling every show.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right, so this is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. I was just telling Shane I am up to 278 drafts on Underdog. Probably will finish in the 350, 400 range. I don't know if I'm going to get to max out the Best Ball Mania. I'm only halfway there, and we've only got about 3 weeks left, and I don't want to do a bunch of slows near the end. But I've had a lot of fun. I talk all the time about how Underdog set it and forget it. The one-night stand of fantasy football, no in-season managing, always be drafting. I did a Bulldog for 500. They're constantly coming up with new and innovative contests like they did with the Dalmatian. And if you go to Underdog Fantasy and you sign up using the code BESTBALL, they will match the first $100 that you spend. You can't beat that, Shane.
No, it's pretty good, and I haven't tried it yet, but I'll probably get that itch late, so I might check it out this year. Do a couple best balls.
Use the code BESTBALL for savings.
I will use it. Absolutely.
You put in 100, you get 100, and if you did puppies, you could do 40 puppies for $100 with a chance to win. Like I think the last puppy has, hold on, I'll tell you. The puppy 3 has 200,000 up top.
Wow.
Not too shabby.
That'd be nice. I'll take it.
So let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals didn't take a lot of skill players. They took Trey McBride in the second round, Keontae Ingram in the sixth round. Doesn't look like either of them is going to have much of a role this year. I have heard it looks like I was betting that Darrell Williams wasn't going to be the 2, and it looks like I got a win there. Any thoughts on Eno Benjamin and any of the rookies here for the Cardinals?
I was a fan of Benjamin. I know you were too. I was a fan of his kind of the year before.
I know. I wish I drafted more.
Yeah, but he was in my top 5 running backs going into his final year, and then he really struggled that last year and had the bad workouts. And so I sometimes those are the guys that do well, right? Like you don't have to be this great athlete. I think he's better than Darrell Williams. I would personally have him as the number 2. And with James
I looked up Jag in the dictionary.
Yeah,
and I saw Darrell Williams' picture. And so I don't have anything else to say.
I saw Damian Williams' picture. We got all the Williams running backs.
Well, at least Damian Williams really flashed in Kansas City.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't a fluke.
No, not during the Super Bowl at least, but I think his best days are behind him as well. So, but yeah, Darrell, why not go for the upside? I think especially if Connor gets hurt.
That is a great lead-in to our next team, the Falcons. They took Drake London in the first round, Desmond Ridder in the third round, and Tyler Algier. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Algier?
Algier, yeah.
Algier. I have taken some Damian Williams on teams where I feel like I could use a little floor late. The Ridder seems to be behind Mariota. But Drake London looks like he could be special.
Yeah, I think Mariota's going to start. I think Algier maybe is a little too hyped up. Just for being a 5th round pick, I think it's going to be tough early for him to crack the lineup. But you saw Elijah Mitchell last year. You could have that. He could be that one guy. But like the Falcons aren't going to be, I don't think, a monster rushing team. They're not going to be playing in these close games. That's why I like Drake London. I think even at his value a little bit in some of these best balls, like I think he's going to. They're going to throw a lot. Their defense is awful. They're going to be down. So actually, I think London is a decent redraft player this year. He's big. He's looking good in camp. He kind of has the skill set to get volume and get a lot of catches. He might not score a ton of touchdowns, but I think the volume is going to be there. So I think he looks good.
Yeah, I was not drafting a lot of London early. I felt like, generic where he might land. I'm up to 9.6 on Underdog. And, they've got a week 17 correlation with the Cardinals, which I think is good. One thing I liked about London's tape is he's a football player, right? I mean, he is a tough guy. He enjoys the contact. I think that can be an underrated part of what makes someone successful in the NFL and someone who doesn't. The other thing is, if you watch Marcus Mariota in college, there was a lot of wide receiver screens. They got the ball out of his hands quickly. I don't know if Arthur Smith is smart enough to do that, frankly. But that was a big part of Drake London's game at USC, wasn't it?
Right. He cut a lot of passes behind the line. You think a guy that's 6'5", he's not going to be that player. He got a lot of knocks for being a contested catcher, which I didn't really think he was as much in college, but had some games where he struggled because of that. But like when they were getting the ball to him behind the line, I mean, he's a tank. Like he runs through you. Like you said, he likes contact, and a lot of these smaller corners just got run over. And honestly, at the NFL level, they're all smaller than him too. I think he has the athleticism in short space to run through, break tackles. He's going to be tough to bring down. So we'll see if they use him that way.
If they do, because he does seem to be able to get separation as well. I don't think he's just a big plodding guy. I don't think he's the fastest guy. But I do think he has a little bit of twitch. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. And I think because we didn't get workouts because he had the injury, I know I was a little sheepish early as well because who knows, health-wise, but everything looks to be there. I think he does get separation for as big as he is. He's a decent route runner, and he has kind of a good burst. When he gets in that second gear, he did a lot of stop and goes. He did a lot of double moves, things that you expect from a 6'1" receiver. He's doing it 6'5". I think that's how he gets the separation.
Yeah, I don't have him at all on the FFPC, believe it or not. So that's a big miss. I'm going to have to address that down the stretch. I will say that I want to talk a little bit about Kyle Pitts, not a rookie. But he was a rookie last year, and I thought the hype was a little too crazy for a tight end. He was going second round sometimes in the FFPC. Well, that's where he's going now, right? And he goes mid to end of third round in Underdog. He's one of my real buys. I mean, he's a guy I'll reach for. He's a guy that I just think that once you get past that rookie year with tight ends, it can be like a real jump, right? And I think that Marcus Mariota isn't as bad as people think he is. And as you said, they're going to have to be throwing. Would you disagree with anything that I said about Kyle Pitts?
No, I love him in round 2. I took him there in the Pros versus Joes at the FFPC. The upside's massive. Like we talked about, they're going to throw a lot, and he's a nice, easy target to throw the ball up to. Tight ends become a mediocre quarterback's best friend. I agree. I actually like Mariota decently. He's pretty efficient when he did play. So I think that efficiency means screens, means shorter passes. And I think Kyle Pitts, that's going to work to his advantage. I think this is going to be a better year for him. You're probably going to have some spike weeks and some down weeks, but that works for you in best ball.
Yeah, no doubt. And also, It's an old trick, but if you get one of the 3 or 4 stud tight ends, it's one of the best ways to separate from the field. You get a couple 30-point weeks out of a tight end. And if those late round even though I do like the late round tight ends more this year, I do think if you're hoping for 5 for 50 and a touchdown out of one of your guys, and Kyle Pitts puts up a 35, which is well within his, especially in point and a half premium. I've got 18% on FFPC and about 16% on Underdog. That's right around where I'd like to be. I normally don't have more than that for a second round player.
No, I think it's a good move. So I think more people need to do it.
All right, let's move on to the Ravens. There really aren't any rookies other than Isaiah Likely, who I've heard decent things about. I almost took him in a Lamar team, but then there was another correlation and stack in the last round that made more sense. So I went that way. What do you think about throwing a dart or two on Isaiah Likely in case Andrews gets hurt with the Lamar stack?
I would be fine with it. He was a player that I was much higher on. Watching the film, I think he was phenomenal. I think he's much faster than he timed. He's basically a big receiver, and that's not something the Ravens really have. We know they don't have a ton of receiving talent. I think Isaiah Likely, he had some long touchdowns. He gets up to speed really quickly, pretty explosive. Even if he doesn't maintain that speed, he can get past you. So I like him. If Andrews goes down, I think Likely has the job over Charlie Kohler, who's going to be more of that blocking first kind of player. I think it'd be worth a shot on a team or two just in case.
All right. Anything else on the Ravens? Anyone on the Ravens you want to? Oh, let's talk about Dobbins, because Dobbins is a guy who's fallen to the 6th round. There's a lot of people I like in that range, so I haven't been going nuts on Dobbins. But how good is that guy? And what are your thoughts on him?
I still really like J.K. Dobbins, and I like the value on him this year. Even in Dynasty, people seem to be souring on him. But when he was at Ohio State, he was electric against any defense and carried that team. And then I thought he flashed a bit as a rookie. Had the injury last year. I think the whole question is just injury-wise, because I think if he's on the field, this is going to be a run-first team. He can catch the football. They desperately need another receiving threat on that offense. I think he could be it. And honestly, there's no one behind him. Gus Edwards is still hurt. Talking rookies, Tyler Batty's doesn't look like he's going to crack anything. Mike Davis, J.K. Dobbins is the guy. If he plays, I think he's going to outscore his position.
Well, and he also makes Lamar Jackson better, right? The fact, one of the big things about any option play in any sport is how good are both parts of that option, right? And if you can shade because, if Lamar doesn't run, he's handing to Devonta Freeman, late career Devonta Freeman versus J.K. Dobbins. I think it opens up lanes for the option.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good call, and they got to lean more into that this year. So I'm a fan, especially if I have Lamar. I think I've tried to get Dobbins.
The Bills took James Cook in the 2nd round. I've had a few Twitter wars because I was taking a lot of Singletary back when Singletary was in the 10th, 11th, and even at times 12th round. Because he put up a lot of points down the stretch, and I think he is the first and second down back. I think one of the things we end up running into is people want to project someone for fantasy football purposes, not what a head coach in an NFL will do. I do think James Cook was brought in the 2nd round because I think they're right. They were desperate for a guy who could catch the ball out of the backfield. Singletary wasn't the guy. But, he was a guy whose tape didn't blow me away. Most of the time when he was making big plays, to me, it was when there were huge holes. right? You're talking about one of the best offenses in the league. I really would like you to give me, because everyone's acting like he's a league winner in the ninth, 10th round. His ADP hasn't really adjusted. Your thoughts on Dalvin's brother?
I think he's talented, but I think he's a role player. I think that's what he was brought in to do. If and we make this argument about Georgia, they've been a team that's used multiple running backs. I mean, Nick Chubb was in a timeshare with Sony Michel, etc.
And he still is.
And he's still right. Honestly,
poor fucking Nick Chubb. I mean, the guy can never get the ball. He's like by the time someone is going to want to give him the ball, he won't have that burst anymore.
And if the other guy requests a trade, then he gets first team's reps, so it doesn't matter much.
I mean, and if when Hunt went down, they put in Johnson, and that's why I don't draft either of them, because I like players who have a floor and a ceiling. And when there's three running backs, and I want that. The one thing is, if Singletary gets hurt, James Cook could end up having a really significant role. Kenny Walker, if Penny gets hurt, could have a really significant role. I don't know that I see that with the Browns, but I digress. Let's get back on Cook.
Yeah, I mean, the problem, like you said, is you're already paying that premium for him. Like he's a league winner if Devin Singletary gets hurt, because I think he's a role player. He was at Georgia. I think he's going to be the same thing for the Bills. You're going to see him out wide. You're going to see him on third down. And
a couple carries a game.
Right. You'll bring him in. He might have a series, but I honestly think he's going to struggle with some of those smaller, the blocking aspect, the things that he wasn't asked to do at Georgia. He's going to have to do for the Bills. Those are the things that always hold these rookies back, right? Initially, I think that's going to be the case for James Cook. Like, I think he could have a big game here and a big game there, because he gets 3, 4, 5 receptions and has one big carry for 20 yards. But it's just too rich for me. The Bills didn't have a lot of needs. It wasn't like they had to address anything. Running back was a need just to get someone else in the room, because Zach Moss was so awful last year.
Yeah, no, I definitely think they needed something at running back. And I do, to me, I just feel like the field gets out over their skis on a couple guys every year because of what they could do. But then there's what they're likely to do, right? And I do think you need to have some Cook in your portfolio. I'm trying to add, but there's so many guys I like where he's going. And when you're talking 10th round, your team isn't really formed yet, right? You're still looking for sometimes your first quarterback or your second quarterback, your first tight end, your third running back. Then there's stacking. I wanted him the other day. I was getting ready to hit it, and then I realized I had Russell Wilson. I had Mahomes, and Melvin Gordon had a week 17 correlation. And I think Melvin Gordon and James Cook probably have about the same role. I think Melvin Gordon has at least as much upside with an injury as James Cook does. So I went with the correlation. It was just another chance that I wanted to take Cook. I want to get, at least up to 5% on him. But where he's going, I'm finding it difficult.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely, for sure.
All right, nothing really to talk about rookies-wise on the Panthers. Let's move over to the Bears. And again, not a lot, but Velus Jones was, kind of everyone on Twitter went nuts when they took Velus Jones. And they really don't have a lot of weapons. But let's talk about Justin Fields, because he's been one of my favorite second quarterbacks. It's a tight group, Mooney, Kmet, and Justin Fields. You can get someone late to add to it, whether Pringle or Velus Jones. I'd like your thoughts on Velus Jones, but I'd like to know your thoughts at ADP on Fields.
So I like Velus Jones. I feel like one of the few in the the community that likes Velus Jones. Like he was on a team in Tennessee that started throwing the football a lot more because of him. I think he has the speed. He has a lot of experience. He's a good route runner. Like he should win that number 2 job. I would say number 3. I still think Byron Pringle's probably going to be the number 2, but I think Villachon
if for no other reason than blocking and again, the number 2 and number 3 often are pretty interchangeable.
Right. And I think of that offense, it could happen, toward the end of the season. Like you said, I mean, Byron Pringle and Villachon's two of my favorite receivers to draft in like the last round, to just take a shot on, because with Fields, I like that Darnell Mooney coming out saying they're actually practicing a scramble drill. They're actually seem like they're willing to utilize his athleticism, maybe not fully running the football, but at least get out of the pocket, let him do some things. I think there's a high floor with Justin Fields, and I think there's a big ceiling with him. I think he takes a step forward. Like, is he going to become Kyler Murray or this superstar? Probably not. But in terms of fantasy, I think there's a lot that you can glean from this. And this is, once again, a defense that I think is lacking in talent. They're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more than they have the past couple years when they had a good defense.
They have a new coaching staff.
Right.
It's a lot more aggressive.
So I don't know. It can't be much worse. And I think there is a lot of upside with the Bears offense that I think fantasy owners are kind of, crapping on right now.
Yeah. I again, to me, you hit the key thing. People think that these running quarterbacks who can't throw don't have a good floor. Typically, they tend to have a good floor because they're getting 5-6 rushing points on average a week minimum, right? I mean, he's probably going to get you 5-6 points a week minimum. And then if you figure he gets 6 or 7 rushing touchdowns, every 3 games, you also get 6 points. So let's say that's 2 points a week on average. Now you're at like 8 points a week. And then if he throws for 200 yards and doesn't throw 3 picks, he's got a floor, right? The question is whether and how often he'll hit a ceiling. But I'm willing to take a chance on a talented guy who's going at, all the other running quarterbacks are going in the first 10 rounds. Trey Lance, who I don't think is nearly the runner that Justin Fields is going in the 7th, 8th round. We'll get to Trey Lance, but I do like Fields. All right, let's go over to the Bengals. They really don't have any rookies. Anybody on the Bengals you would like to address?
I'm kind of interested in Chris Evans a little bit as a shot. I do think maybe they give Mixon a little bit of rest and not try to just run him into the ground, especially if they're going to have a playoff run. And I think Chris Evans looked at, I thought he improved toward the end of last year. Maybe he could be a nice flyer at running back.
Yeah, I like putting him. I normally don't take him unless I have Josh Allen or Joe Burrow. That's when I tend to take him, because I think if Mixon gets hurt, Perine's going to be the first and second down back. So again, that's what I look for. I look for, in my late picks, I look for a guy who's going to have a ceiling if I hit, if you get that injury.
Right.
All right, let's go over to the Browns. We kind of covered everything there. Let's talk about David Bell, and let's talk about DPJ, who is a guy who really flashed in my mind. And I was taking a lot of him most of draft season. He's just had a big upgrade because Watson's going to play, and then who knows if Watson's still going to play. But your thoughts on Bell and DPJ?
I'm a big David Bell fan. I just think he's talented. Obviously the workouts were disappointing, but that's why he was there at pick 99 for the Browns, and looks like he'll, even with he just got activated yesterday. He still looks like he's going to secure that slot role. But I do like Donovan Peoples-Jones. I like the value there. It'd be better if we know that Watson will be back, but he did flash down the field. I think he's going to have some big.
He reminded me a little bit of Devontae Adams. Just that bigger guy who just seems fluid. I mean, he's not the route runner Devontae Adams is, but just from a physical standpoint.
Right. And I think he was a 5-star recruit. He was a big time high school player. Like he was the best receiver in the country and just never hit that next step. But what that usually means is you have a guy that's a really good athlete, right? Even if Michigan didn't develop him, the NFL certainly could. And those are usually good guys like Stephon Diggs.
And he
those are the
flashed
guys that
last year.
Right. Right. And he flashed last year. So I don't mind the value on him, especially, if you end up with Watson or whatever.
All right. Jalen Tolbert for the Cowboys. And what's the name of that other guy who seems in the mix there?
Yeah. So I like Jalen Tolbert. I think he is going to have a shot to have an impact here. Ultimately early. Like he was dominant at South Alabama. And, I think what I've seen on Twitter, a lot of people like, oh, well, he's not super fast or whatever. But I mean, he ran past guys. Like his footwork is really crisp, even in straight line, that I think he's a player who could be, if he gets playing time, like I think he's a rookie to take a shot
I
on.
think he's going to have to be a starter with Cooper gone. Gallup probably starting on PUP. And who else got hurt? James Washington.
Right, James Washington. I think that really sprung him, and people seem he's going to keep creeping. I think James.
What's the other guy's name? Houston.
Dennis Houston, yeah, from Western Illinois.
What do you think of him?
Yeah, he wasn't a player that I was super high on coming into the year. I'll pull up my scouting report. He was my wide receiver 52 in the draft, but like super productive, and he's fast. Like productive, fast.
But not a guy you would be fit, because Gallup is coming back. So right. Not a guy. You think that it'll be Tolbert?
I think it'll be Tolbert. I think Houston, maybe he can make it.
And James Washington's coming back too. All right. So I think we've settled that Houston is not like. And if I go to any of these teams and you've heard anything about a rookie who's a free agent, please let me know.
Yeah, sure.
Now we get to a situation that I want to cry about, the Tim Patrick injury. Fifth round pick Montrell Washington has gotten some nice talk in camp. And Greg Dulcich, did I pronounce that right?
Yeah.
He's a guy who's got a lot of talent, but they've got Alberto in front of him. I do think with Tim Patrick hurt, it opens up more for Dulcich. But do you think as a rookie tight end, is he worth taking much shots on? And what are your thoughts on the Montrell Washington, if you believe in Russ and you think Hamler's paper thin?
So I think for Dulcich, I'm not quite buying as a rookie. We talked about rookie tight ends before, but he is a good pass catcher. But I just think a 2 tight end sets, it's going to be really tough with the weapons that they have for him to make a big impact. Like, once again, could have a 2 touchdown game somewhere in there. But
so if you're taking a 20th round flyer, not Dulcich, Washington.
I think Washington's a better flyer. Like he was an electric player at Samford. He was a return guy, kind of special teams was mostly the view coming in, but they used him, a lot of screens, a lot of short passes, and let him kind of just do stuff after the catch. So I could see that. And my one question is just if he can hold up to the hits like that. That's, he is slight. He is small. That we've seen small guys that's catching on in the NFL, right? More and more. So I think, they might be able to game plan for him. I think Washington.
Well, and Russ, has that unique ability to drop passes into the bucket. Fast guys, that's why he has my interest.
Yeah, I actually think if he gets a shot, if Hamler gets hurt or isn't able to quite get back, like I think Washington, he's the guy I would take a shot on. I like in the last round, see what you can get out of him. Cause I think he fits. I think he fits what they need there.
Who's the third wide receiver now? Oh, Hamler, yeah.
Hamler, right.
And Hamler's, I was drafting him really hard the first day or two after the Patrick injury. The the ADP didn't catch up, but now you're talking 13th, 14th round on Hamler. That puts him back in the, if I have Russ or Mahomes for that week 17 correlation more than anything else. All right, the Lions, Jamison Williams. What's the latest you've heard on him? And, what do you think about? I mean, I was taking some 12th, 13th round, mixing him in, but then I started, once I start hearing that guys might start on PUP, miss 6 games, and coming back from an ACL, it scared me a little bit. I was loading up on DJ Shark, and now Shark has moved ahead of Jamison. But what are your thoughts on Jamison? To get a guy that fast in a dome for the playoffs is pretty exciting.
Right. He's still a pass for me for redraft. I just don't see him coming back.
What about best ball?
Yeah, well, I think best ball gets a little bit interesting, like you said, because you might have him late. But my thought is the Lions are not going to rush him back. They're not competing this year. They're not really trying to. That's why they drafted him. They don't need him this year. So, I think PUP list is probable for that to happen, and then it wouldn't surprise me.
And they've got other guys that they like.
Yeah,
Josh Reynolds still seems to be getting, and Josh was a guy I liked a lot coming out, and he was very raw, and him and Goff seemed to have something.
Yeah, I just couldn't take Jameson Williams. I think there's other guys I'd rather have that you feel confident. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they shut him down for 8 to 10 games just to make sure, why waste them when they're going to have like 3 wins?
Romeo, wherefore are you, Romeo? Well, you're all of a sudden in the 13th round, Romeo. And I was, again, when it, I had mixed him in a little bit. I had 3% before, he turned into Devontae Adams. But now, 13th, 14th round. I mean, I never believed in Allen Lazard, 6th, 7th, 8th round Allen Lazard. I mean, could Romeo Doubs be the number 1 receiver on this team?
I still am not there. I'm still not there. Like, I think he was a value, last round we could take him. I have him on a lot of dynasties where I drafted him in the last round of rookie drafts and things. But, I think he's a good player. Like, I think that they drafted him early enough that you're not saying, oh, this wasn't a 7th round pick. I mean, it's a 4th round pick who had speed and had production for 3 years at Nevada. I think he can be MVS. I think he can do that role down the field and have a couple big games, have a couple big catches, right? Like, I think that's possible, and maybe around 13 that's worthwhile. But once Christian Watson comes back, which looks like it'll be in the next week or so, then things just get, I think, muddy again. It only took one Aaron Rodgers quote to really make that change, and I just wonder if it's a little quick, little soon for a rookie that probably needs a little bit of work. Like he's stiff. He's a downfield stiff runner. And so, I worry that he's going to just be that role player if he does get on the field for that role.
We haven't seen the discount on Christian Watson that I had hoped for, right? Typically when you hear a guy bad, now he had dropped a couple rounds before the news. His ADP was up around 100, and it was down around 115, 118 before the news of him starting camp on PUP. He's now crossed the 125. So with all this waiting, I would have liked to have seen him drop 2 rounds. He's only dropped a round. You and I were both high on him coming out. We drafted him a lot in our FFPC earlies. Do you think he is he's a very talented guy. And if Rodgers is willing to give Doubs, did I pronounce that right? Is it Doubs?
I think it's Dobbs.
Dobbs.
Yeah.
All right. If Doubs, if Dobbs is a guy that Rodgers is willing to give a chance, why wouldn't he give Christian Watson a chance?
Yeah, and I think Rodgers said the right things when he's gotten asked about Watson. Like, it's not a big deal, and we're working together and talk. So I like it. I don't know. I think maybe the whole Rodgers not a rookie thing might be a little overblown too. That's who he has.
Well,
So
he's never had a rookie where he didn't have a number one before.
right.
Right? If I had Devontae Adams, I wouldn't throw to a rookie very often either. And who did when Devontae was there? They had Jordy Nelson,
Right.
right? And Rodgers always, since he became the starter. Greg Jennings, I think, was
Donald Driver.
Donald
They
Driver, right?
took a year.
So he always had. There was reasons why rookies. You can afford to not throw to rookies when you've got guys you're familiar with who are all pros. Alan Lazard isn't an all pro. I know Rodgers does like him. He's liked him from the beginning. But I don't know, man. I just can't buy into Lazard at where he is. You?
No, I just don't think he's talented enough to pay off at where he's going.
Which means that these rookies are going to have shots. Watson will have a shot.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Houston Texans. The big one's Dameon Pierce, who's, we're starting to hear. I was kind of avoiding him and taking Marlon Mack later. But I'm starting to hear that Pierce is the guy that they think is the most talented. But again, he's a rookie with a pretty conservative coaching staff.
Right. I struggle with Dameon Pierce because I think he is a talented running back. I think he has a little bit of that, David Montgomery, plow through the line, use your vision, use your, you use your size to your advantage where you can kind of get low and plow through guys. I think Dameon Pierce can do that. My issue is just how good's the Texans offense going to be anyway, even if he does start. If they're going to be down, are they going to have to throw the ball a little bit more? I don't think he's a great pass catching running back. So even if he is the starter, I'm not sure if Dameon Pierce is going to make the year one impact. I don't think he has the talent to break away runs, and I think he could have a nice 4-yard run or on 3rd and 1.
Right.
He gets hit in the backfield and gets
11 for 36.
Yeah,
2 catches for 8 yards,
and everyone and Twitter loves him, right? Because he looks good doing it, and
right.
But that's gonna give you fantasy points. So
yep, and there's really nobody else I want to talk about. It's a shame about John Mechie. I was drafting him late, but let's move on to the Colts. Alec Pierce, 2nd-round pick, looks like a starter. Jelani Woods, I've not heard good things about, but we knew he was raw coming out. I mean, Pierce is starting to make, he was so, both Pierce and Campbell. Oh, by the way, I did want to make one other comment. I wanted the Texans to take Pierce strong, and I'm still not over the fact that they took Dameon Pierce over Pierce strong.
Yeah, come on.
It reminds me of when Belichick took Sony Michel over Nick Chubb, and I was like, what?
Why?
And then turned him into a 2-down back.
Right.
All right, so we're moving back to the Colts. Pierce and Jelani Woods. It looked, Jelani Woods looks like he's a redshirt kind of guy almost. But we knew that coming out. But Pierce looks like a starter, and in 3 wide receiver sets. What are your thoughts on him?
I like Alec Pierce a lot. I think he's going to make a year one impact. Obviously, it has the good athleticism, but he's kind of a tough route runner. I think his work on curls and digs and inside routes is pretty good. I think it's NFL ready. I think you can get some separation that way too. So I think it's a good fit for Matt Ryan to have a bigger target. With Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce, I think there's a lot you can throw up to. I think Alec Pierce is going to have some big games this year. I think he's still kind of a value. And I like Jelani Woods, but he's not going to do anything this year. He's not ready. This was a pick for year 2, year 3. I think he's someone to keep in
And
mind.
Paris Campbell has passed Pierce. I mean, you used to be able to get Paris in the 20th round of every draft.
Yeah, which Paris Campbell's talented. Like I think I would still rather have Pierce. I just would rather have that upside, I guess. But
I've got 9.6% of Paris and Pierce. You're going to be very happy with me. 16.6%.
Oh wow, nice. I am. I think it's going
to me. He was just too cheap in the 170s, 180s on a team that was desperate for other options other than Michael Pittman.
Right, and I mean, we really haven't seen Paris Campbell play, so it's tough to know what he's going to be too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and Pierce is a big target. I think Matt Ryan will use him.
I think we could see some screens to him too. I think we could see wide receiver screens to him.
Jacksonville. All right, so all the cool kids love Travis Etienne. I've had a hard time getting there, especially in half PPR in the third or early fourth round. In FFPC, you see him go sometimes early third. In FBGs, I think he's even gone in the second round. Obviously talented. There are great reports out of camp. But I didn't think he was a great between the tackles runner coming out. And Doug Pederson's always used 3 running backs. Your thought on ETN, because it is kind of his rookie year, right?
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much is. I mean, you and I had some ETN fights last year. I am a big fan. I think he has that like one cut go kind of ability that I think Doug Peterson will like, and hopefully can catch some balls. I think the concerns are valid. I mean, he's coming off a pretty major injury, and he's on an offense that's not going to be spectacular. I think
I loved him in the 4th, 5th round in early best ball. I mean, considering everything,
I mean, you have to hope that offense is pretty good. That's really the hope.
Yeah, and I'm not sure it is. I mean, I've got 8.5%, right at even money on Underdog, and I've got 7% on FFPC, but it's all early. All 13% is early. I need to get a few in later best balls, but. And that's why I like doing these checks, because I've spent so much time on Underdog. I haven't checked because I've only done 30 of them. It's hard to really get
right.
But so you do believe in ETN?
I do like I like a lot of players in the range he's going. I understand being a little expensive, but I think he's worth the upside, and I think there's a decent floor there.
Do you think he's going to kill me if I don't take him in the 3rd round? Do you think that he could be a guy who's drafted in the 1st round next year?
I think it could happen. Do I think it's likely? No, but I think it could happen to you. I think he has that type of talent with a high ceiling. You know, if Jacksonville's better than we think and Doug Peterson's better than we think, like he could be a top 5 pick next year if things go well.
What about Trevor Lawrence? I mean, he I remember watching him in college and not getting what all the love was, right? Like I didn't see Peyton Manning. I didn't see, like he was, Andrew Luck. And he looked really bad last year. So, I mean, I think you've got to draft some of Trevor Lawrence based on his pedigree and the fact that you can get you can stack him up late, with Marvin Jones, with Zay Jones. But I have to say, I'm a little concerned if he's going to be a thing.
No, I definitely have concerns after last year. I wrote about how he was the best quarterback that that I have actually scouted. I didn't scout Peyton Manning coming out or anything like that. But, I think Lawrence really, like last year, was just not asked to do what he did at Clemson. He wasn't really given that freedom. Does that mean that you automatically give it to him and he's great? Probably not. I think losing that first year and having such a bad first, it's going to have an impact. So I'm worried too, but I do like that the Jaguars as a whole, that offense is fairly cheap. Like you said,
and they spent a lot of money on it.
Right. Like they are attacking that first in a lot of ways, which is good.
Probably poorly.
Maybe.
But a guy that I like, and he, some of the cool kids were drafting him. I had almost no James Robinson, guy coming off an ACL with ATN there. And that's really a mistake. If you're not taking, ETN or Robinson, you're really vulnerable. But I do kind of like Snoop Connor. They seem to like him. And what did we learn about Pedersen in Philadelphia? He likes running 3 running backs.
Yeah, I think Snoop Connor, it could be that last round shot to take. I just can't buy James Robinson off the Achilles coming back that quickly. But
right.
That means Snoop Connor could be the number 2 for a while at least.
All right. Let's keep moving along. The Chiefs. Sky Moore seems to be making believers out of people. And you and I talked about Isaiah Pacheco because I've been adding him everywhere the last couple of days. We talked about Damian Williams, but Damian Williams crushed. I don't think Pacheco's Kareem Hunt, but I think there's a little something to his game. And do you think Sky Moore could be the best wide receiver on the Chiefs?
I think by year's end, Sky Moore definitely could be the best receiver on the Chiefs. I'm still not fully into.
He seemed raw to me coming out.
Yeah, and I think there is a bit of that rawness, but at the same time, like he's not a route runner. But the Chiefs' offense isn't really built around route running for those receivers, right? It's almost like a playground, kind of get open and draw it up in the dirt kind of deal, which I think Sky Moore is good at. I think he's going to come out of the gate week 1, week 2, and we're like, oh, God, Sky Moore. Probably not. Like I think MVS and Juju will probably be a little bit more used, but I think we'll see that build by week 5 or 6. I think Sky Moore could be the wide receiver 1 there. Pacheco's interesting. I just have a hard time seeing. He's fast. He's athletic. And
Rutgers' offensive line was pretty poor.
Right. Rutgers, like they did not have a ton on offense. You knew they were running the football. You knew he was getting the football. Him and Bo Melton, and like
he kind of showed when he was going to get the ball. As I was watching his tape, he just seemed to be, he kind of would just hunch up a little bit when he was going to get the ball.
I'm sure there are some teams that keyed in on that at some point, but yeah, he is fast. I think his vision, it was problematic, and a lot of that could have been the line as well. He's older, I think he started in 2018. But as a 7th round pick, I struggle to see a huge impact unless there's an injury or 2 for that running back group.
I was drafting a good bit of Isaiah Spiller. I liked his tape almost as much as I like Breece Hall's and Walker's. I mean, he just seemed to have much better acceleration than I thought he did. I've been taking him as a great way to get some late correlation with that Ram Charger game if you're building a Ram stack. But it seems like out of the gate, they're doing the rookie thing with him where he's like 3rd string behind Joshua Kelly and Roundtree, guys that we know can't do it. Your thoughts on Spiller for this year?
I like Spiller. I tend to think there's not going to be a ton this year. I mean, I do think Eckler is a little bit susceptible to injury. Got banged up last year. Doesn't have that big frame. I had Isaiah Spiller over Kenneth Walker. I thought he was a better running back. I was surprised when he fell to the 4th round.
Well, once he had that time,
right.
I think that 40 time killed him. But
yeah,
when I watched the tape, I didn't see that number.
No, I think he's definitely faster than that on the field. Definitely more explosive. I think that explosion.
I mean, you throw him a pass and that first 10 yards, like I thought he got that first 10 yards super quick, and that's how you get big plays.
Right. But it's like how stubborn is the coaching staff going to be? I think you're hoping late, if anything.
Yeah, I think Pacheco, obviously, when you're drafting a guy in the 16th, 17th, 18th round as a fifth or sixth running back, you're hoping that when the games start to matter, you're taking a chance on random chief running back blowing up, right? I mean, that's basically what it is, right? If CEH gets hurt again, if he's MEH again, as you called him and as I like to call him, but again, trying to, and Benjamin's another one that I didn't draft because I drafted so much of him last year and it was discouraging. Even when Edmonds went down, they really didn't give him the ball much. But I'm going to start adding Eno and Pacheco in a lot of teams, and especially if I have a good build, and kind of take both of them on the same team as a fifth and sixth running back in the 17th, 18th round. I think that is, you hit because they're great offenses. They're great offenses for running backs. So you're trying to kind of break the code a little bit, Shane.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like but I think Pacheco just to put that type of draft capital, like the commenter said, like they're not going to swallow their pride and say that CH is a bust or I think even Jerick McKinnon might still be in there. It's like, well, you play the veteran because you feel more comfortable, but that upside's there. Or hey, you have an injury or two by week 10. I mean, whoever's starting for the Chiefs is who you want. So I get it, but I couldn't do it.
All right. The Rams, really no rookies. I don't even want to talk about Kyron Williams. I think the chance of him playing this year are very, very small.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the Raiders and Zamir White. So Zamir White's a guy that I wasn't drafting because I don't like situations where there's three guys and it could easily be Drake behind Jacobs. But Zamir White seems to be doing pretty good in camp. I've started mixing him in as that late guy, with with Pacheco, with Dante Foreman. Your thoughts on Zamir White? Do you think he could beat out Josh Jacobs?
I don't think he'll beat out Josh Jacobs. I think they'll run Josh Jacobs into the ground pretty well for this final year. But I do think that Josh McDaniels is coming from New England, and even when he was a head coach, used a couple different running backs. I think we see. I'm kind of with you. I think Kenyon Drake has his role. I think he's going to have a role, right? But I do think if Josh Jacobs gets hurt, which is fairly likely at some point, I think Zamir White jumps into that. Like I think he kind of jumps Kenyon Drake in that instance. So I think we're talking about,
and again, what you're hoping
upside,
for with a 20th round running back is you're hoping you don't need them until the playoffs, right? Like you're hoping your team can get to week 15 without needing much out of Zamir White or Benjamin. And we do see it a lot of times, injuries late in the season, a season doesn't go as well as you think it's going to go. And all of a sudden, for a big week 16 or week 17 games, Zamir White, Benjamin, they're the last man standing, and they're talented and in a good offense. Yep, I agree with you. But how much did you like Zamir coming out?
I liked him a decent amount. I didn't think he was incredible. He was my RB6. I thought he was productive. His athleticism, I thought, got back to where it needed to be this past season after multiple knee injuries. And he was developing vision. Do I think he's going to be an electric, top 5 running back in the NFL ever? No, but I think he can be what Josh Jacobs has been. And that's pretty good for fantasy.
Nothing really on the Dolphins or the Vikings I want to talk about. The Patriots took Tyquan Thornton in the second round, but there's so many guys there. I love Pierre Strong, but it's really hard for me to take. He one of my most owned running backs in early best ball. Broke my heart, like I said, that we didn't see him land in Houston or an opportunity, because I think he could have come in year one and actually done something.
Yeah, you and I both are big Pierre Strong guys. I was banging the drum for him. We were drafting together. It's hard not to take him. And it's just a bad, like the draft capital was solid, just a bad situation,
Belichick never takes the guys I want him to take and always takes the guys I don't want him to take.
Like, come on, man.
Fuck you, Bill.
I actually like Tyquan Thornton a little bit as last round stab. I'm with you. I think that the guys are too much. It's just similar players, but he is more talented than the internet and Twitter want to give him credit for. So
Chris Olave, a lot of people really like him. His ADP has gone up. Michael Thomas looks healthy. I was telling you that I've been buying Michael Thomas. He is one of my most owned wide receivers. I've got 16% Thomas on Underdog, and I've got 19% Thomas on FFPC. I felt he was worth the risk, if you know what I mean. It was an ankle injury. It wasn't like, an ACL with complications. And but Olave seems that they're saying now that him and Jameis are good. I didn't love Olave. I don't think he's like a league winner necessarily, but am I wrong?
I think you could be. Like, I think Olave has some really good pieces to his game.
It's Olave.
Olave, so, yeah, that's right.
So, yeah.
That's right. But I think he has some good pieces in terms of route running, speed, athleticism. Like, he gets open. His big issue was after the catch. He did almost nothing. So, I wonder if it leads to, like Michael Thomas had like a lot of targets. I think they're going to spread this ball around a little more than it has been in the past without Sean Payton. I think Olave could, develop into that number one in the offense, and Michael Thomas both could do well. Jameis looks good. When Olave was cheaper, he was definitely a target of mine in almost every draft. But people are buying in.
All right, let's move on to my Giants. My number one owned wide receiver is Wan'Dale Robinson. I felt that they got him for a reason. And early camp, I don't think he's going to be in two wide receiver sets, but I was drafting him in the 19th, 20th round. 17th, 18th round. I didn't need him to be a number one or a number two. Didn't expect it. And the tight end, Bellinger, I guess it is, looks like the starter. Is he worth a last round pick in best ball?
I think so. I'm a Daniel Bellinger fan after seeing him at the Senior Bowl. He was San Diego State is a running every play team, and so Bellinger didn't have a lot of production because they didn't throw the football. But his workout numbers hit all the analytics thresholds for tight ends. Last round, I would take a shot on him now that he's back and he looks like he's the number one. Like, he has the athletic ability to catch some touchdowns or have some multi-touchdown games.
On teams where you need a third tight end, if he gets 40 catches for 450 yards, a couple touchdowns, it's fine.
I think it's doable for him. You'll have your goose egg weeks, whatever. I think it's doable for him though. And I'm with you on Wan'Dale. Like, he's going to be the starting slot receiver. And it sounds like they may even give him a couple, reverses out of the backfield, runs, former running back. He's tough. Like, I think those shares are going to pay off for you, Todd. I really do.
I do too. I really think, and I think he's going to get some nice spike weeks. I think he's the kind of guy who could give you that 70, 80-yard touchdown and get enough volume around it to make it worthwhile. All right, let's move over to the Jets. And, I am just not a fan of Zach Wilson, right? Yeah. And so you've got Corey Davis there. You've got Elijah Moore there. I've kind of taken Corey Davis as my most owned Jet just because he's so cheap. And a couple of years ago, we were all talking about Corey Davis like he was the next big thing. Even if he's not the next big thing, I think he's better than a 16th round draft pick. Garrett Wilson's a guy I take some just to have it. And Elijah Moore, I'm going to have trouble getting. I know a lot of people think Elijah Moore is going to be that Chris Godwin, but on an offense with Zach Wilson at quarterback, I find and other really good options, it's hard for me to get too excited about any one of them. And then Breece Hall, Michael everyone's drafting him like Michael Carter died. And Michael Carter played really well last year. The Jets liked him. It's probably going to be a 60-40 split in Breece Hall's favor. And I can get Michael Carter in the 13th round. So Michael Carter is a guy that I have. I'm way under on Breece Hall, which, it could not be ideal. And I'm way under on Garrett Wilson. But Carter is a guy I have 13% on, and I don't have a lot in. I don't have a lot in FFPC because I didn't take any in early best ball because I thought they might add someone, and they did.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you on the receivers. Like I could not draft Garrett Wilson for best ball this year. I just couldn't. I just couldn't do it. Like, there's a good chance Zach Wilson's not any good, even if he is. Like you said, they still have Corey Davis. They still have Elijah Moore. They signed 2 tight ends to decent money. Like, how much is Garrett Wilson getting this year? So I love him in Dynasty, but he was my top wide receiver coming in, but I just don't think he's going to be super productive this season. I do like Breece Hall. I think had he gone to a different situation, he'd probably be a first-round redraft pick right now. He'd probably be a first-round best ball pick if it was a good situation. So I think that talent can win out. I don't mind Michael Carter. Like you said, I liked Michael Carter a lot. He was underdrafted in the NFL draft. But
he's a great 4th running back in best ball. I mean, that's what I'm taking.
Catches,
Well, I mean, 4th running back, you're looking for, he's got a nice floor for where he's being drafted. And if Breece Hall gets hurt, he's gonna, get some volume too. Maybe Zach Wilson turns into Bucks Jameis, throws 2 early picks. I just don't see it. I don't. Jameis had legit arm talent that I just don't see with Zach. Could be wrong, but again, it being so mixed. So you don't think I'm being crazy by fading both Breece? What about Breece? Do you think I'm crazy being under on him?
I think you should prop that up a little bit because I think the offensive line's pretty solid. I do think they're in. They have a pretty weak schedule this year. Like I think Breece could do well, but the receivers, I'm with you. I'd rather take.
It's Corey more Davis about that. There's a lot of receivers that I like in the 4th round.
Yeah, which is fair. Which is definitely fair.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not taking a lot of Zeke, and I know a lot of people think I'm making a big mistake not taking Zeke's in the 4th round. Well, Tony Pollard's still there. I'm going to take some, but I have to take some Zeke. I think Akers in the 4th round is a much better pick than Breece Hall.
You could be right there. I think it's possible. People like that unknown.
It's a great offense. The Rams are a great offense. Yeah. Now he's a full year past the ACL. I mean the Achilles. Yeah. He didn't look all that bad in. He looked bad, but I mean,
it's like it's pretty bad.
But I mean, he was out there.
Yeah, right. Which is better than not being out there. So.
And they played him. All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Eaglets. Nothing really there. The Steelers, Pickens versus Trubisky. Boy, it's hard to see Pickett doing much. Pickens is a guy that I didn't have enough of, and I kicked myself because I loved his tape. And I made a stupid error. I acted like he was the 4th receiver, and really he's the 3rd receiver. It was an oversight, a childish one, but I'm trying to make it up by getting some Pickens now.
Yeah, I mean Pickett's not going to start. I'll be surprised unless the Steelers get knocked out. The fans are going to want it, but that organization doesn't
Small
really care.
hands.
Yeah, he's going to be the number 3 for at least half the season, so I wouldn't even touch him. Trubisky, I'd much rather take a shot on. Yeah, and Pickens, like he's talented. I think he's going to have some value. Like I think he's going to have some good games, especially late. But yeah, he'll very clearly be the number 3 receiver. I don't think he's going to pass Deontay or Chase Claypool.
A
And
bounce back Claypool year is definitely possible.
yeah, I think the value on Claypool's pretty good right now. But even Pickens with everyone
and
healthy,
don't forget my favorite later tight end, Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah, as I was going to say, I think Pickens is behind Freiermuth on targets.
Oh
too,
yeah,
so.
I mean Freiermuth to me, like he's my, I've got a couple FFPC teams where I miss the early tight ends. My favorite value tight end is Goddard. I think Goddard is going, behind Hawkinson, and you could make the case he should be ahead of him. I think Goddard is, so I have a lot of Goddard. I have a lot of Pitts. And if and then I mix in Waller and Kelsey and Kittle. But if I miss all those guys, my favorite guy by far is Freiermuth. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think Matt Canada loves that stick route, the old Jason Witten. I think that's what they're going to use Freiermuth again. I think he's going to get a lot of targets, and if you're Mr. Trubisky, you're not great. Like that's an easy hot route. I think they're going to use that a lot. Yeah,
I mean, look, mostly draft. I mean, I like him on. He's a good red zone target for half PPR, and I think he's going to catch a lot of. What people always think tight end premium is good for all tight ends. It's really only good for tight ends who catch a lot of passes.
Right.
If you're a 3 for 30 and a touchdown guy, that 3 catches is worth an extra 1.5. If you're a 6 for 70 and you don't get a touchdown guy, that's 16 points, right? That's an extra 3 points. I agree, Mad Sucks. Trubisky is scary, but they're gonna be throwing the ball, right? They don't have a great run line. They got a lot of weapons. I don't know. Am I wrong on Freiermuth?
No, I think you're right. Like it's I think the fear is, are there enough are there enough targets, especially if you like Claypool, are there enough targets to go around? Because Najee is still gonna, that he's gonna get a ton of passes going his way. So I think that's the only question. But I like Freiermuth to be more, him and Najee, I think are going to continue to get a lot of short passes. Trubisky might not be great, but he's not much worse than what they had last year. Like it's, so
Ben was completely shot. And that's awful. A great point. I mean, Ben couldn't push the ball down the field at all. I don't see Claypool as a heavy target guy. I don't see him as a heavy target, more of a big play guy. I want to look up Freiermuth real quick. His stats. So as a rookie, he got 79 targets, 60 catches, only 8.3 yards per reception. But, 60 receptions, even if he only does that again, and with a quarterback who gets him up to 10, 11 yards per catch and some touchdowns for a late tight end, just that's fine. And it wouldn't shock me to see him get up to 70 catches.
Yeah, I think it's possible. And I think they're going to be more fast-paced this year without Ben, too.
Awesome. All right, we're almost done. Promised I'd get you out of here by 9. The Niners, let's talk TDP.
I thought Tyron Davis-Price was overdrafted. I think drafting him was kind of hedging Trey Sermon, right? They want that bigger, between the tackles, running back, and it looks like maybe Sermon's looking a little bit better. I don't see a ton for TDP this season. Obviously, with the Shanahan running backs, like worth drafting because if he gets his shot, anyone's productive. But I think Elijah Mitchell is the guy. I think Trey Sermon's not going away, and Jeff Wilson's still there.
Still there too.
So how it's going to take some injuries for TDP to be relevant.
Broward Bravado, can we talk about Gesicki if he's in both blocking and catching? I don't know that he is. I've read that he's not in both blocking and catching. What I liked about Gesicki is he's a spike week guy. He's great for best ball. He had almost as many 20-point weeks as the studs, but on weeks where he didn't get a 20-point week, he got a 4-point week. I think that could be even more acerbated with McDaniel, but I do think McDaniel is one of the smartest guys I've come across. I think they didn't re-sign him not to use him. Right. Your thoughts, Shane?
Yeah, I like Gesicki where he's going. Like you said, I think in best ball, those spike weeks are going to be there. Tua, I think, trusts him a good bit. I thought that developed late in the season. So I think even with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle there, I mean, what are you going to do in the red zone? I think you're going to Mike Gesicki. I think out of anything on that offense, I think it's going to be touchdown heavy this year.
Rachaad White has been going earlier than I like the whole season. People acting like Lenny is, especially when he showed up as Fat Lenny.
Yeah, right.
I didn't like Rachaad White's tape as much as a lot of people. I thought that he was very inconsistent, and then he had flash plays. People love flash plays. NFL coaches, though, like guys who are consistent. He can catch the ball. Brady is good with that. But my big thing at where he's going is I don't think if Fournette goes down, he's the guy. I think Keyshawn Vaughn would play a lot. Your thoughts on Rachaad White versus my thoughts with the tape? I think you liked him more than I did. And your thoughts on where he's going?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I think Arizona State was kind of a dumpster fire in a lot of ways last year. And so I think Rachaad White...
Their offensive line was terrible.
It was really bad. And so, what do you weigh that? Because I think he made his bones, like you said, outside the tackles, because that was how he could kind of control things. I think he was maybe the best pass-catching running back in this draft. And that, that's something that's going to translate, I think, onto the field when they were trotting Leonard Fournette out there to catch a ton of passes. I think drafting Rachaad White in the top 100 says, maybe we don't want to do that all the time. So I don't disagree with you that maybe he's a little expensive, but I do think he's like head and shoulders above Keyshawn Vaughn in terms of talent. And, you have kind of a new group that drafted him. So I'm still buying Rachaad White. I think it'll take a while, but I think late in the season, he could be one of those players that does blow up.
Yeah, I think if Lenny's healthy and they need to win games late, Lenny's going to be on the field. He's a 3-down back.
Right.
He showed it. Todd Bowles is, it's hard. He was okay with the Jets, but I don't see him as some great innovator. It'll be interesting to see what Byron Leftwich does differently now that Bruce Arians isn't there.
Right.
Like, it's one thing to say that Leftwich is calling all the plays, but when you've got an offensive guy that opinionated as a head coach, it'll be interesting to see. But my gut is that Rachaad White is not going to have a floor where he's going, and the ceiling will be capped a little bit more than people want to believe.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's fair. I think this is why rookies are tough, right? Because we don't necessarily know. And, I would hope that.
But you do like him.
I do like him. I do think there is a chance that, like you said, if Fournette gets hurt, that Rachaad White is, at RB1. I think that's possible.
Treylon Burks and Kyle Phillips. A lot of stuff on Kyle Phillips lately, and Treylon Burks looks as he was advertised, one of those guys who looks like a man among boys at times, but I know you didn't like him. I think, if my memory is correct, you didn't like him necessarily as the number one guy.
Yeah, he was my wide receiver too, behind Garrett Wilson. But my fear is that lack of just like explosion off the line. He takes a little bit to get going, and then after the catch, we talked Drake London. Like Drake London after the catch runs guys over. Traylon Burks doesn't do that. He kind of plays smaller, so that always worries me. But I think the situation is perfect for him, where he can kind of step right into what A.J. Brown was doing and do that. A.J. Brown wasn't that guy either. That's why he fell. So I actually, after the draft came a little more around because I like the fit for Traylon Burks. And I was a big Kyle Phillips fan. Like I thought he would go earlier than he did. I thought top 100 was possible for him. I mean, his footwork, it was insane during the season. He's not going to beat you deep, but I mean, his skill set is what it is. I think wide receiver 3 or 4 to start the season on that team is possible, and he could rise up, to that slot pretty quickly.
And everyone now wants to finally find the next Hunter Renfrow.
Right. Well, yeah, you don't want to draft him as a rookie either, though. So,
right. Okay, good point. Let's finish up with the Redskins. Dotson was a guy that I just wasn't taking. I thought it was thin. I didn't watch enough of him though. And Brian Robinson, I know they say they want to use him, but hard to, without an injury, hard to see him. But what are your thoughts on those guys, where they're going and talent-wise?
I like Dotson where he's going because I think he has as much upside as some of these other rookies. In terms of he was really productive. He had an awful quarterback at Penn State, made him a lot more than he was.
So he should be familiar with that.
Yeah, like honestly, it's kind of Carson Wentz has been.
Well, I mean, Allen Robinson, Penn State. It's like that's like the Penn State. Godwin is the only one who actually, and Godwin didn't really have a quarterback out of the gate either.
Right. You wish one of these guys maybe could start with that. But I think if they use him as kind of a slant, he's shifty. Like I do like taking some Dotson because he does.
I like Curtis Samuel a few rounds later.
Yeah, well, you've been a big Curtis Samuel guy for a while, and and
he just keeps getting cheaper.
He's cheaper, right? You can almost get him for nothing now. So I do like a little Brian Robinson. I'm with you. Like, I don't know about this year if he's going to get a ton of play, but they're also not, with McKissick back, I think that makes it a little bit tougher. But I do think Robinson is, if Gibson gets hurt, I think Robinson can be that guy, just bell cow, run the ball a ton and be productive. Every Alabama running back under Nick Saban taken in the top 100 has had 1,000-yard season at some point. Like Brian Robinson will too. So I think that will show out a little bit.
All right. That is going to do it. I want to thank everyone who joined and asked questions. I appreciate you guys. Shane, fabulous stuff. I hope I set you up and didn't overtalk you.
No, you're great. That's perfect, man. I love cutting it up with you. So
yeah. I mean, I'm very specific in that I want my questions answered because I'm struggling with a lot of these situations, and I'm always looking to improve. And you are fabulous with the rookies, fabulous with the young players. Really appreciate you, my friend. I think you're supremely talented. And I really appreciate every time you come on.
No, man, look, I appreciate it. And you are great at what you do. And I was happy to pair with you for some of those drafts. I learned a ton.
Yeah, I mean,
I learned a ton from you. So.
Hopefully we catch lightning in a bottle on one of them.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be nice.
That's gonna do it for this weekend. We will see you soon. Thanks, Shane.
Thanks.